cities in the past. It's not just Tulsa. It's not just Rosewood, like those that we've heard and, different things happen. There's a lot of black townships, black cities that were established. And a lot of us nowadays don't believe or don't think that we can establish these things because we don't have the examples before us. We don't think that it's been done before. Garvey said, if man has done it, man can do it. And so we will provide information. Like you will be able to come to Sianda and live in our city or socialize in our city, and at the same time study other African-led cities, both here in America and abroad, to get some context of what it means to do that thing. What brought me to land stewardship. I was 12 when I received the book, The Message to the Black Man, from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And in that book, he explicitly said that the answer for the African, he didn't say African, but the answer for the black man and woman, the black family, is emphatically separation. Accept your own and do for self. Like, we have to understand that if we want to be and excel as a people, we have to take all of the responsibility of who we are and how and who we want to be. Reparations, cool, but with or without reparations, we must be. Whatever gifts or no gifts, we have to make it happen the way we want it to happen. So I've been set up. I usually talk a lot, and I'm gonna be quiet. I don't know if my 5 minutes up or whatever, but I'm gonna stop right there.
Yeah, we got some more questions coming. Thank you back here. Excited to have you in this work and be a partner, from New Orleans with you and seeing you do your thing in Alabama. It's beautiful. I'm gonna kick it to Chris up in DC.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate y'all being here. This is so beautiful to see. I grew up going to festivals just like this, and the only way you can grow up going to festivals like this is for somebody to take on responsibility for the community and bring people together around it. So, Deron, thank you so much. Everybody coming out today is beautiful to see. I grew up around black land. I'm a country boy. I'm from Morristown, Tennessee. It's about 35 miles east of Knoxville. I grew up with my Uncle Walt hobby farming about an acre across the street from my grandmother's house. She would can and preserve all the things that came out of the garden. We had walnut trees, we had peach trees, pear trees, all in the backyard. So I grew up a country boy. Lived in Nashville up until 2000 when I came to DC to go to school. And I could see that DC had that long history, not just in the city, but where folks had traveled from through the Great Migration. A lot of folks up in DC, their people are from North Carolina. And that was real familiar to me being right across the way in Tennessee. But yeah, Tennessee is a wild state, man. On one end of the state, the Ku Klux Klan was formed in Pulaski. On the other end of the state, Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, right? So it's a state deeply entrenched and invested in white supremacy. We see it today with what happened with the Tennessee Three and what continues today in the Tennessee State Legislature. So we got to continue to pay attention to the ways in which, even though we don't want to often engage, we have to pay attention to what happens in electoral politics because they impact our communities. Up in DC, a little bit more backstory. Another part of my family, I'm glad Bakir mentioned Rosewood. Another part of my family are survivors from Rosewood that ended up in Jacksonville, Georgia, and Valdosta, Georgia, where I just came from a family reunion last week. So all these tragedies are distant but so close. My Aunt Eloise is 96 years old. She was at my family reunion. Her father, my great-great-grandfather, George Wells, along with my great-great-grandmothers, Sarah and Annie, between the three of them had 32 children. So you can imagine how large this family is. My family is on that side. We were all landholders, sharecroppers, farmers, and we still retain our land in Georgia, in Tennessee, and that's not changing. We're about 50 years straight of having a family reunion every 2 years. That is not changing. Black institutions and families matter. In the city, you know, we're lucky to be able to grow food on 3 acres worth of space in Ward 7 and Ward 8. The last bastion of Black DC, Chocolate City, we used to be about 70% Black. When I got to DC in 2000, now we're about 45% Black. So, you know, land, selling grandma's house, you know, we can understand why in some instances, but also at the same time, when we start losing that culture, we start losing that tradition, we see that financial impact is not as bad as the social impact when we're dealing with the inter-community violence and other things, because people feel so dislocated from their culture and from their home. But that comes from capitalism and white supremacy and the pressure on folks to just make it day to day. And so as much as we can, you know, we want to build out community-based economic development, spaces where people can come and reconvene, the youth can connect with the elders in the farm spaces, and set the stage for some bigger picture work, not just at the policy level, but grassroots organizing and building power and connecting with folks like yourselves. Really excited to be here today to learn more, connect with new people, and share the stage with these amazing folks.
Thank you, Chris.
Dreaming Out Loud is the organization.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing the story of your family and the history that y'all are still preserving, and it's so beautiful. I'm gonna kick it to you, Ife. Please share what you want to share. You're so brilliant, so feel free.
It's an honor. Greetings. Good afternoon, everyone. Ife Kilimanjaro. Let me back up a little bit because I'm writing something. Ife Kilimanjaro. Can you hear me? Okay. So, born in Detroit. I grew up several years in Detroit, and I returned to it. Been in the city for most of my life, in cities. Disconnected for several generations from land, although there was something about my life and early experiences that had me out on land. My grandmother, on my father's side, when I was young, my sister and I would visit, and they lived adjacent to woods. So early on, I was able to develop relationships with trees and with mosses and with critters that lived in those areas. She grew her own food, and so we were able to pick food from the garden, and she cooked it and prepared it for my sister and I. And so having those experiences for several years in a row as a young child not only left it a powerful impression on me, but it really was foundational in my relationship with nature and an orientation to how important it is that we feed ourselves and grow our own food. And when I returned to Detroit as an adult, I was down in DC for a bit at Howard. Hey, Chu, anybody here? And then and then when I went back to Detroit, was really blessed to meet with and work with Baba Malik Yakini, who started the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, also a member of the Alliance and founder of D-Town Farm. And so not only did I develop the practice of growing food, but there was unlocked these memories that I didn't know I had about that relationship with many generations ago. So even though I didn't grow up on land and with that experience of farming from in my lifetime, my mom didn't, her mom didn't, but there was still something so familiar and natural in being in relationship with the land and with the plants and the trees that coming back onto that, re-entering into those relationships was very powerful. And since then, I've continued growing in different ways. I work with an organization right now called Soulfire Farm, which is based in upstate New York. And Soulfire was founded by, initially, it was a family farm where they responded to a call from community on the south side of Albany, where there was limited access to healthy, nutritious food, but they were deeply in deep relationship with members of the community. And when they learned that these folks were farmers, they had skills, put the challenge before them. Why don't we do something so that we can grow food and we can help grow, and then the food can come back and support us and our families, and that's what they did. So that's a bit of the history of Soulfire, and since then, for the past 10 plus years, have been growing food. The aim now has been, or at least since it formed as a nonprofit about 5 years ago, is to disrupt, uproot racism in the food system, and they do that by growing food, distributing it to areas that are impacted by apartheid in Albany and Troy, and in the process educating Black, Indigenous, and other people of color who are interested in learning how to be farmers or be connected with other farmers, so through the educational programs. I continue to grow, I continue to be in relationship with the land in my home here in Chesterfield, Virginia. We've been here for about 3 years now, and it's important to grow our own food. I mean, there are things that are very basic to life, and that's eat food. It's being able to meet our fundamental needs, including food, transportation, housing, and be able to do that in community with people with like hearts and minds. And so we're slowly checking off boxes. Also, as a person who's worked to address the climate crisis, growing our own food is an important solution in helping to address the warming of the planet. We're sitting in the sun. There are more increasingly hotter days, and that puts all of us, humans and our relatives of different formations, at risk of in the future being able to survive. And so to the extent that we can shift our practices now to extend the possibilities of our lives and those of our future generations, those are things that I want to do, and growing our food is part of it. So I don't know if that sets up for the next question.
It does. Thank you so much, Ife. And before we go to the next question, to talk more, it's getting hotter. I know this is not the same sun that I grew up with, but I don't know about y'all. I'm from New Orleans, and we keep getting record over 100 days, and the index is, I'm trying to mitigate this, I'm sorry. All right, cool. So yeah, speaking of one of our co-founders of the National Black Food and Justice Alliance and growing our own food, you mentioned Baba Malik Yakini, a personal mentor of mine, and knowing that they've started the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network and opening over $20 million community-owned grocery store in 2024 is so amazing. And just naming the things that we can do together if we just organize and stay committed. So shout out to Baba Malik for being that example and knowing that we can do this together. So just wanted to highlight someone who's not here, because with the Alliance we are about self-determining food economies, and we do that through co-ops. And we're all about this democratic leadership. So excited to hear that, and I just want to hear from you all if you want to share some more, about how we are facing climate change, and what's going on in your impact? Like, what are you doing in your work to make sure that we're collectively modeling this resilience? Thank you.
So that's a big one. Like one thing I'm certain that the Earth has not done anything to transgress against its creation. Like nature, the nature of the Earth is still naturally what it is and what it has been. So there's some things that are happening, with the Earth that, it's going its course. And then there's other things that are happening as a result of the greed and our hardcore intention for capital and currencies, which that's another.
1 second. Sorry, I just have a quick announcement. ULF 5290 Tesla is about to get towed. If your license plate is ULF 5290 and you have a Tesla, please move your car because it's about to be towed. Sorry.
All right. So anyway, long the short of it all. In Siandaland, we have the intention of establishing practices that, stick to like natural practices of natural farming practices, natural building practices, moving away from some of the things that we are motivated to do based on, dollar bills. We look at the food trucks out here, the food that we're eating. It's a lot of, unfortunately, corporations, there's a lot of food that, can't even really call it food. There's a lot of things that we are partaking of and eating and ingesting that is not really food. And, they grow it and put, whatever chemicals in there to convince you that it's enough, to do your body good. And a lot of us, we participate in it. We buy stocks in it. We invest in it, but not really thinking about the millions of children of our people that are coming behind us. So I guess my only point in rambling right now about global warming and the whole nine is that each of us collectively, we have to figure things that we can do that are back to nature. I get it, the coding and the technology and everything is, is lovely for what it is. But there's a lot of things that we don't want to do because it's hard work or heavy work or plenty work. And we say that it's primitive or it's ancient, and there's a fine balance, right? There's a fine balance between technology and just the natural things that we do. So we have to get a hold on that. I'm gonna stop right there.
Appreciate you back here. No, it's real. The technology can sometimes, hinder us in moving to the direction we need to. Let me kick it to Chris. What y'all doing for regenerative practices?
Yeah, for us, regenerative practices start on farm and the culture that we work to build around the work that we do. Regenerative practices come from Afro-Indigenous practices, come from our cultural heritage. But that also needs defense. Right now, speaking of the corporations, they're starting to co-opt the term regenerative agriculture, right? So you're hearing Danone and McDonald's talk about we're practicing regenerative agriculture so that they can influence Congress to get more money to continue raping and pillaging the environment so they can continue to do it for generations to come. What the madness of it is, they're gonna crash the whole planet and there won't be generations to come at this stage, at this rate, right? We know that. We're heading quickly towards those tipping points where there's no coming back from it, right? And so we're at a critical inflection point to be able to resist and get rid of these folks and do the things that are needed to make sustainable regenerative agriculture a reality. We talk about, even the United Nations acknowledges that regenerative agriculture is one of the ways to mitigate climate change, but we don't see the investment at the level needed because there's a capital motive around those other incentives with corporations and the power in which they utilize that money to influence our environment, right? Our political environment. So for us, it's both the educational part, but also what we do day to day in the practices as we're growing. I would also say, regenerative agriculture is it's also a spiritual practice. You have to be in tune with the earth, in tune with what you're seeing and what you're feeling, which is something we deeply need, is to be more in tune with what each other are feeling and dealing with on a day-to-day. And these touch points that we can build in community with community are going to be important as we kind of work to maintain our mental and spiritual health with all this going on.
Thank you, Chris. That was perfect. Go ahead, Ife.
I really appreciate how what's being offered is it kind of moves from the macro to the specific. What is being offered. So there's a systems analysis that's necessary when we're talking about the climate crisis, what got us into this situation, and which are these broader systems of where white supremacy, economic, colonial capitalism is kind of creating the conditions for then industrial capitalism to have created this situation where the planet is warming to the degree that it is, to the point where over between 150 and 200 species are going extinct each and every day. And then kind of bringing it down to the role that regenerative agriculture can play among one of many solutions to the climate crisis. And examples of that Soul Fire Farm is using and that we are using with our the homestead specifically is around no-till, so we don't till the land, we don't pull up or dig into the soil, because doing so then releases carbon that's naturally held within the soil, but instead we build on top of the soil, garden beds, we use mulch to hold in nutrients, cover cropping to keep the soil covered. The root systems of cover crops of plants and trees hold together the soil. So to the extent that we can maintain the integrity and the structure of the soil, it means that it mitigates erosion. Erosion releases carbon, it creates further erosion, and so to the extent that our practices can mitigate that and prevent it, that's what we're doing. We also intercrop, so planting, not as opposed to monocropping where there are like acres and acres of corn or peanuts or something, and in order to maintain such an unnatural presence of plants in the world, I mean, no plant grows naturally that way. We plant multiple crops that kind of complement one another. They cover the ground, so some cover the ground and put nutrients into the soil that taller crops are able to draw and use as nourishment as they grow taller. So intercropping is an important regenerative agricultural practice that we use. We also use composting. So where we can to create our own compost from old food scraps that are able to naturally degrade, and in time, you know, there's a process to it, but we're able to put that humus, that rich vitamin nutrients on top of the soil, and then that feeds the soil. So instead of putting it into the dumps, the city dumps, by taking that food waste and composting it, we're able to create our own fertilizer. We have chickens on our in our place here in Chesterfield, so we use chicken manure and incorporate that into the composting as well. Silvopasture, so just as an example of that, it's using the grazing of animals as part of the garden or farm operation, where they can move in different places and eat, and then their poop fertilizes the areas that can then be planted in the next season. So these are just some of the examples of regenerative agriculture that we're implementing and have implemented to build up the soil, to keep it nourished and healthy, and to maintain or to keep and bury, sequester carbon in the soil. There's also a portion of land, so if you have access to land or on land, if there's a portion that can be dedicated to the just growing trees, and perhaps even you can agroforestry and do some harvesting within tree communities, like preserving and protecting trees is another very important aspect of agroforestry and of helping to address or mitigate the climate crisis. Because again, when we pull trees up, trees are important. Number one, they help keep carbon in the soil. They also help prevent soil erosion, and those are very important aspects of that. If we don't do those things, then it helps to accelerate. climate crisis. These are things that we can do as individuals and as, I guess, operators of farm operation. To the extent that we all can do them, we're developing practices and that are helpful and relationship with the land that's important. And to get back to the whole systems question, you know, us as individuals are not the main contributors to the climate crisis. And so there's still an element of addressing and opposing the systems of destruction and oppression that are a necessary aspect of doing this work. And so just want to name that. So we can do what we can do, and it's important to do that. It's important in the process to shift and transform our relationship with the earth and with the environments that we're in. And we have to continue to grow our own food, eat our own food, grow our own foods, not buy the stuff that supports the destructive arms of colonial capitalism, and also actively oppose the ongoing and expansion of destruction.
That's some bombs you just dropped right there. You say, wow. That was lots of ways that we can practice and ways that we are practicing regenerative agriculture. And I really want to harp on the point where you said it's not us individually that's contributing to this. So there's a like victim narrative of individuals like we don't recycle, so that's why the plant. No. There's oil and gas companies and large corporations that are exacerbating this climate crisis, and something that we're doing at the Alliance with the Farm Bill legislation that's coming up is literally requesting and demanding that we divest from those harmful practices that are exacerbating the climate crisis, like the monocropping of the soybeans and the corn, and investing in regenerative practices, ones that our grandfathers and our, people that came before us know that works. Like you said, using the animal silver pasture and ensuring that we're incorporating all these things and being compensated for them as people are being compensated for destroying us. So I just have one last question for you all, and I really just want to see if there's some ways that folks here today can get involved with the Black Land Movement, or how you can, contribute to climate resilience in their own backyard or community. Yeah, if I can.
Certainly, all of us not only should get involved, it's imperative that we all do. So, for instance, in the case of what we are doing to establish a city, when people start talking about going into intentional communities, they're always talking about, I got to be around somebody with people who think like me. Like we have to be, we have to think alike, be like-minded. And truth of the matter is, most of us live in places where we don't even know the people who we live around. So it's not that you can't live with people who don't think like you. The greater thought is that we have to consider what our agenda is collectively. A lot of the things that are happening, it might be on some cartoonish, G.I. Joe and Legion of Doom and all these, cartoons of superheroes and things. But believe me, at some point, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. Most of us are not dissatisfied with how we are living, and we're not dissatisfied enough with the buffoons who are perpetuating the things that we are being puppeted around to support. Like, it's just some things that we know don't make sense, but we're not willing to really stand up and just destroy, for instance. Like, destroy what we know is seeking to destroy us. And, you have to find it in yourself. So what I'm saying is, someone who's not necessarily interested in living around a whole bunch of black folk, deciding on how to create a government for black folk, not interested in, some of the cultural dynamics of black folk, but love black folk enough to say, I support what you're doing. I think what you want to do for yourself is a good thing for you, but I like making this money. Like, as Sister Ife said,
It's as simple as, you know, if you live in, say, the project, wherever you are, do some container gardening, like grow your own food. Find something to do. Create a network. In New Orleans, we have the backyard gardeners network, right? And this is a number of, you know, citizens in different neighborhoods who grow different foods, and then they come together, exchange the foods that they want and like and need, and then everyone is fed. But we rather sit back and argue against Wally World and his children and demand that you give me some, you know, some real food. Like, them people don't have to give you nothing. It's our responsibility, right? And when you really understand it's your responsibility, it's like, I always say mama is the closest thing to God. Mama will pick up a car, kill concrete, drown a drop of water when you're messing with her babies. So we have to get mama-fied. We need to be mama-fied in what we want for ourselves, what we want for our people. And find your way, like team with somebody or some group, some organization. The same way you're thinking about how to get on that rocket ship with Elon Musk, right? Like some of y'all, I'm gonna get off of this planet. I'm going to Mars, because he's doing the work. I ain't mad with him. Like, he won't go to Mars. Go on, young blood. Go on. But you have to determine what it is that we want, because you can't do nothing in silos, nothing by yourself. We have to determine what we want to establish on this planet and this day. And then any horse with a man on it come out the sky, or any baby plane and UFOs that come, like, if it's for us, if it's on our team, we already in motion. If it ain't on our team, then you better be ready to fight for it, right? So yeah, just find some group or some individuals, create a group to do what it is like that, what it is you see in yourself. Like, go into your own imagination, fantasize. Because if you don't have your own fantasy, you might be living in somebody else's fantasy. And their fantasy might be your nightmare, which has been what we have been living as a people. So, that one.
Thank you, Bakir. Yeah, find your tribe. I'll kick it to Chris.
I would say how you spend your time and how you spend your money. Spend your time with folks, building with folks, spend time on black farms, getting here. Sorry, is that better? So I said how you spend your time and how you spend your money are two major components, right? Spend your time with folks in community, get your hands dirty, learn a new skill, right? There's a come a time of those networks that we rebuilt during the pandemic around mutual aid that were no strangers to us, as that's what we relied on generation after generation. We rebuilt some of those things during the pandemic. Don't let those things go, right? We're gonna need those networks, those connections in neighborhoods, in communities to feed ourselves and protect ourselves again. The way you spend your money, don't spend your money with people that are gonna use it against you. All right, buy food from black farmers. Somewhere in your community, in your neighborhood, and somewhere in your region, there's a co-op movement, there's a farm movement, somewhere you can plug into and spend that time, donate, invest, and build with your folks. I would also say, there's individuals that are doing the work. Tap in, whether there's picking up some literature and reading yourself. Political education is always going to be an important part of building movements and building the knowledge base and the frame for what we're seeing, right? It helps you interpret what you're seeing. Knowing history means you can kind of predict what cycles are happening, so we can be ahead of things and not being, being proactive and not letting things happen to us. So those are some of the strategies and ideas and things I would say are important for tapping in where you are and plugging in with people that are already doing the work and being a joiner, right?
They said it all. I don't have anything to add, and I'm not going to repeat, but I really appreciate what was said. What I will say is that stick with it. Sometimes if the cucumbers don't come in right, we're like, done, I'm not growing cucumber, I'm not doing this anymore. We lose patience. And I'd say stick with it. The first year might be a loss, the second year might get a little bit of more, and there are ebbs and flows. But stick with it, connect with folks. I don't want to get into repeating, but just really appreciate all that's been shared. The only other thing I add that I don't think has been said, and then it might be, handing it off to you, Dr. Jazz, is the National Black Food and Justice Alliance is a really wonderful resource. And I heard they're going to be opening up membership again soon. So that might be a great opportunity to connect with Black farmers around the country that and see who is in your area that's also a member. So I'll just leave it at that and turn it on back over.
Thank you so much, Ife. Yeah, absolutely finding your tribe. We will be opening membership 2024, but we have lots of spaces if you're not a member that you can still participate in, like our co-op peer-led group. So if you're thinking about starting a grocery-led food co-op, connect with me. You can find us. We have monthly calls and we peer learn together. We just did a whole season on civic engagement. I mean, when we're building co-ops, we're not just building stores, but we're building community. Right now, we're talking more about how we're going to get together in the supply chain, like how we're going to build our Black supply chain. So all these topics that we're learning about together, it's just really important that we do that. So excited to see if there's any questions from the audience before I pass it back to the panelists to let you know how they can find you. Any questions out there? Y'all have anything to ask or want to know more about? We got Kalanji with a question. Can you bring this back?
First off, thank you all for your great work.
Just. Oh, they got that. Thank you so much.
First off, thank you all for your great work, and I think we all should give you a round of applause because y'all been doing excellent work. I'd also like to thank my leader, teacher, and guide, Bakir, for teaching me everything I know. But anyway, I wanted to ask, for folks who are interested in membership, how would one apply or join, and what's the website? I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but it's my question.
Any other questions? I got you, Kalani. Any other questions?
I do have a question. Hi, I'm Ellis. Both thank you all for being here. It's like really powerful to just hear your stories and the unity that through which you all speak only in language and terms. A lot of you spoke about culture, and I'm interested in how you connect the idea of protecting our culture and creating resistance through our culture to the work that you do, and how it is incorporated into some of the regenerative practices that you mentioned. Because I hear about like making sure we're in a space for the generation to come, but also how are we making sure we're respecting the Afro-Indigenous practices that we are using and respecting the generation backward.
That's our culture. You want to answer anything you think? So I can share about the alliance at the end.
So we understand that culture is the immune system of the people. I think everything that's been said or mentioned is about, like, it is about culture. It's about cultivating ourselves to be doing the things, exercising the kind of practices that are consistent and ongoing. And Sianda, here's when you start talking about putting a town together, a city together, just a community together, it's scary. We don't trust ourselves. Oh, let me not say we don't trust. We are told and we tell ourselves we don't trust ourselves. So responsibility and trust are like key components of like forward movement. When we think about what it takes to put people in line, or as Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, to create a land of upright people, we don't want to take on those tasks, those struggles, because I don't think that she could be a good woman. I don't think he could be a good man. I'm the greatest man, you know what I'm saying, and on this, right? So it was said a couple times, like, patience and diligence. Like, we have to be diligent about the work that we have committed to do, understanding that some of the people who reap the benefits of what we do are not really going to be worthy. Like, they gonna be some shiftless Africans, some undeserving Africans. But we don't stop or not do the work because they exist. We do the work because we're reproducing ourselves. We do the work because we know that there are many who are beyond deserving and beyond worthy. And so when you find yourself in a place to establish a community, a city of your own, then you have the capacity of dictating and determining and controlling the everyday, goings on of your community. So, for instance, I come out of my door and I see somebody who live in my city. First thing I do is speak and show love, gratitude for the fact that you are living and breathing like me. You can't force attitude. And right now in America, we try to legislate and force attitudes. I love you because you're an African man. I love you because you're African. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just the nature of it. And so when you're dealing with what and like the different things that you do every day, just because, you know what I'm saying, everybody in the community understands the agenda and the mission of that community, that helps develop the cultural dynamic, or the cultural standards that keeps us living and taking care of one another. If our culture was one that wasn't trying to make $10,000 in a month while playing Grand Theft Auto, then we wouldn't have, you know what I'm saying, the type of things that happen. Like, anyway, I could talk a long time, but yes, culturally, it's doing the work, diligently doing the work with the people who you love, and being patient with everyone's work, whether they are doing it at the most high and excellent space, or they struggling, right? The patience of mama again. When a child ain't doing right, she's patient with her child. She's not just tolerant, right? Tolerance means I'll be glad when his you know what I'm saying? But patience is, nah, I'm a work with this one. He a headbanger, but I'm gonna work with him. So, at any rate, yeah, it's really putting yourself in a position to grow what you know we want and need. So.
Anybody else got a comment?
Yeah, I'd love to add, I really appreciate, Brother Bakir, what you offered. And would also like to contribute by saying that the term, we're using this word regenerative agriculture is new, but the practices are not. They're very old. We've been doing them for millennia. Our relationship with nature and with the natural world became disrupted as our lives and communities were disrupted decades, hundreds, thousands of years ago, as various waves of destroyers came through and snatched and enslaved and reconfigured. And so the relationship with the environment, and it's reflected in the spirituality of indigenous practices. We give names to elemental spirits and beings. We bring them to life when we invite their presence in our lives and in our families and in our communities. So I've seen a lot of folks wearing elekes and ohene, depending on what traditions that you're coming from. So these symbolize our understanding and recognition of the life in nature around us and the power that it holds. And in the practices that we held, we recognized and appreciated the earth as a living being and interacted with, and our farming practices reflected that recognition that this is a relative, a family member that is helping us to live, and that we in turn can help to live and thrive if we're in a healthy, reciprocal, regenerative relationship. And so all of this became disruptive. So when you're talking about resistance, which is one aspect of, when you're fighting against something that is, or holding serve, or try not to fall back when something is pressing on you. And then there's the other aspect of it, which I feel like Brother Bakir is speaking to, when we're actively pushing against it and breaking. What are the things that are needed to do that? It's remembering how we were in relationship first, and then drawing the power and strength from that, in addition to the resistance. So resistance helps us to survive, but we got to do more than survive, which is where this other work comes in. And so, but it's all within us. We have it in our history, in our memories, in our DNA. And so then how do we access that? And that's through the connection with the planet itself. It's connection with the people who are also moving in the same direction, same heart and intentions, and linking up and doing that work together. So that's the thing that I wanted to add.
Ashe, thank you so much, Ife. And just speaking about culture from the Alliance, we have Leanne here, our comms and culture director. Thank you for all the work that you're doing to amplify the culture, to celebrate the culture, and also to preserve. You're an amazing storyteller, and that's one of the ways that we're continuing to be sure that we are preserving our culture, to document these stories and the times that we're in, and also our past, because we got everything that we need. So I'm gonna just pass it to the panelists for one last quick minute to give a plug on where you can find them, how you can pull up on them, find them on the socials and all that. Oh, one more question. I'm sorry.
Co-op information.
Oh, for Detroit. I got you. I'll plug the Alliance at the end, and we also have our annual report. Thanks again, Leanne, for making sure we got that out. And we have printed copies for anyone who'd like to see it and learn more about the Alliance. But I'll tell you about how you can join membership. There's just now. But I want them to plug themselves, and I'll wrap it up with how you can find us at the Alliance as well.
So again, my name is Bakir Tayahembe, a co-founder of Sianda Land. Co-founder of Sianda Land in Alabama, West Alabama. Bama town. You can find us. We have a website, SiyandaLands.com. That's SIYANDALANDS.com. Siyanda is a Zulu term that means we are growing, and so you can find us there. There's also email. You can get us at SiyandaLand with the number 7 at gmail.com. And I toss my number out all the time. I get a lot of foolish spam callers, so I don't mind if you want to play on my phone. I play with you too. My phone number is 504. 504. You hear me? It's a New Orleans thing. 504-710-7398. You can call or text me almost any given time. I'm real easy, real approachable, and there's other members of the Siyanda Collective family who, I can push you off to if I talk too much when I'm talking to you. But feel free to reach out at any of those. In time, we're establishing a glamping resort on our land to help bring folk, just like Brother Duran constructed the wall tents and the platforms with the wellness tents. We have a few of those. We have a few wooden structures so that you can come in, feel what it means to be on some land, quote unquote off grid, like we run our own power, and just get familiar with it, and just reach out.
You can check dreamingoutloud.org for the website, at DOLDC across all social media platforms. But if you're in DC, pull up on us at the farm at Kelly Miller or the farm at Fort Stanton. We're also working on a 4,700 square foot food production space that we'll be able to share with some other food producers and farmers in Anacostia and Ward 8. So we'll be busy getting that off the ground. 2024, that'll open up sometime. So putting some pieces into place, working with a lot of great folks, other farmers and food makers. DOLDC across all social media, dreamingoutloud.org. Check us out.
Ife Kilimanjaro, you can look into Soulfire Farm at soulfirefarm.org. That's SOULFIREFARM.org. And then you can also say hello to me. I have a tent all the way in the back on this side, the right-hand side, where I'm selling some books and with some sisters who are local Akumfo or priestesses here in Richmond. And come say hello, and I can give you contact information.
Thank y'all. And if y'all looking to check out the Alliance, we're at blackfoodjustice.org, Black Food Justice online on the Instagrams. I'm like looking at Leanne, right? Yeah. But we also, like I mentioned, Justin has some annual impact reports that has talked about the work that we've done this year with all of our amazing members. So check that out. If you're looking to join membership, please get on the waiting list. You just go to our website at blackfoodjustice.org, and there's a membership link, and you can fill out that form, and we're gonna holler at you soon. I really appreciate everybody who's come out. I'm Jasmine, JASMINE, at blackfoodjustice.org. If y'all want to reach out via email, I'll be around a little bit, but this has been really amazing. I want to shout out again to Duran Chavis, Happily Natural Day. It's been beautiful bringing so much community together for 20 years. Yes, you got to give it up. Please just continue to pour into each other, into the community. And if you're looking for one of the members that we keep mentioning, Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. It's a lot of letters, but all you got to Google is Malik Yakini, okay? Yakini. Baba Malik has been holding down the work of OG in this and has an amazing example of a 7-acre farm in the middle of Detroit. They're opening the grocery store, like I said, over $20 million. Like, it's a long-term investment that is owned by the community for black people. And I know I keep saying black, 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 we all blackity black. But when black people win, we all win, period. So that's what we're about here, and I'm so thankful for y'all and listening to us.
Let's give another round of applause, y'all. Give another round of applause. Round of applause.